Hey everyone, my name is Krisell Valenzuela, and if you are new here, allow me to introduce myself. I am the multidimensional medium behind Krisell Can. So if you're new here, this is my weekly Thursday virtual demonstration. And what I like to do with these virtual demonstrations is give people a flavor of how I work. It's so important for me that people actually seek out a vibrational match or seek out an energetic match when looking for a practitioner. And the best way to do that is to get to know them, to interact with them. So I like to make myself available through these Thursday demonstrations for that reason. So every week, I do something different. The first week of every month, I do emoji readings. The second week, I do some sort of psychic development. The third week, I may teach something. And then the fourth week, I open it up for live Q&As. So drop me a comment, let me know that you're here. Maybe even share where you're joining from. That's always fun. And maybe even share if this is your first time joining. If you are catching me on any multimedia outlet, I broadcast these through my private Facebook group. I also broadcast it through Twitch and through YouTube. So I mentioned I do emoji readings, and I just want to share a little bit more about what an emoji reading is and go over kind of what I do each week. So emoji readings, if you've ever seen people do live readings, usually they give some sort of, the person who's being read gives some sort of hook in. And the hook in I use is your emoji. So what I usually do is walk everyone through a nice grounding meditation. And then I have you think about your intention. I have you visualize putting that into a jar, and then you label it with an emoji, and I read that emoji. So you're imprinting your energy and your intention onto that emoji. Hey, Rachel, thanks for joining. Hi, Blair, thanks for joining. Okay. Because I use StreamYard, if you haven't given permission to StreamYard through Facebook, I actually can't see your name. So let me jump into the Facebook group so I could see. But thanks so much for joining if it's your first time. So that's how my emoji readings work. When I do psychic development, a major part of my mission is that we're all psychic and we're all mediums. It's just about putting into practice and exercising those muscles. So I want everyone to know my story. And my story is that, oh, it's Cynthia. Thanks so much for joining, Cynthia. So my story is that I started developing my mediumship and my psychic abilities in 2019. It was January 2019, and I was coming from nothing, or at least consciously that's where I thought I was coming from. And I never had a paranormal experience before, I never had a supernatural experience before, but I knew from a friend that went through the process and took a class to develop her intuition. It's about grounding, raising your vibration, and meditation. So I kind of went on this 3-year journey of trying to understand what that meant. And what I was able to gather was that it's all self-care. It's about helping yourself feel better. When I was trying to understand what that meant and what psychic development meant or intuition development, I Googled the heck out of those terms: raising your vibration, grounding, and meditation. And I couldn't find anything substantial. And that's what led me to take my first workshop, because I felt like I wanted to take my understanding to the next level. So I signed up for a class. This is only 2019. You Google this stuff now, a whole bunch of things pop up, which is hilarious to me, but it just shows me how spirit works, because I was meant to take that class. I was meant to. Thanks so much for joining, Karen. So I want everyone to know that developing your psychic abilities it's an ability, it's not a gift. Everyone has it. It's just a matter of whether or not you choose to exercise it. And so I love sharing that with people, and it's a huge passion of mine to teach others and help them develop that as well. So, just to give you guys an idea of what we're going to be doing for 2 weeks from now. So next week will be my emoji readings. 2 weeks from now, we're going to play psychic games, and I'll walk you through how to play that if you join that Thursday. So join that Thursday. And then I'm going to be teaching about the energy body and what that means. So if you're familiar with chakras, if you're familiar with meridians, if you're familiar with acupressure, like all of those things have to do with the energy body. And I'm going to talk real high level, but it's going to be a good baseline if it's something new to you. And you probably will learn something new that you didn't know before. So I'll be teaching about that the 3rd week of March. And then every 4th Thursday of the month, I'll be teaching. I'm sorry, I won't be teaching. I'll be answering live Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments. And because you're here live with me, I'm going to give you guys first dibs on questions. But I do have some lined up as well. If you guys are on my mailing list, you're in for a treat because I'm going to be releasing a new offering. And if you're on my mailing list, I'm going to be sharing a code for free registration to this new offering. So what this offering is, I went through training recently for quantum healing hypnosis technique. Quantum healing hypnosis technique. That's Dolores Cannon's specific process for past life regressions. So I'm going to start offering group regressions, which will be done virtually. So no matter where you are, as long as the time works for you, you'll be able to join in. And those on my mailing list, I'm going to offer 5 people. So if you're not on the mailing list already, you're going to want to join it before the end of the day, before tomorrow, because that's when the email will go out. But I'm going to offer up 5 free registration codes for my first group regression. So make sure you join. Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for my list of questions. Who is writing that? Blair wrote, this is from Blair. So if you're interested in developing your intuition, in specific practicing reading and learning the basics, I actually have a psychic development class this Saturday. It's from 10 a.m. Pacific time to 12 p.m. Pacific time. It's all held over Zoom, and that was a big part of my personal journey. I took this class, this workshop, which was a workshop that I recently offered, that teaches you all the basics. Teaches you all the basics you need to know to start practicing on your own. And my teacher would offer these psychic development circles where you could practice in a safe space, and she would give coaching. And that was the most valuable part to me because I wanted coaching. I wanted homework because I was so fascinated by it that I wanted to learn more and I wanted to do better. Hi, Hannah from the UK. Thanks so much for joining. So I did the psychic development circle thing for a few months, and then I felt like I plateaued. So then that was the point that I signed up for a mentor, and then I worked one-on-one with my mentor. And then so I took my first workshop January 2019. It was Martin Luther King weekend. And then by July, I had started my own professional practice. And no, I'm not going to be doing any readings today. I'm just going to be doing Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments. But otherwise, I have a list of questions that I kind of pulled from my social media that I'll be going over today too. Okay, so this is a really great question. How do I know what gifts I have and how to develop them safely and protected? So this is something that I go over in my psychic development circle, and then I also do cover this in my beginner workshop, which the beginner workshop, I'm working on making it on demand, which is something I just did with my Connect and Work with Your Spirit Guides class, which is on demand. Registration, you can find it on my website. And then it's through a Facebook group, which you can do self-guided. And then I do monthly Q&As. So if you have any questions there. But this is a great question because everyone has these abilities. And I feel like it starts with knowing how to identify them. So there are the clairsenses, and the clairsenses are really the psychic faculties. It's our inner senses. This is how we connect with the universe, connect with God, connect with divinity, however you identify it. And that's how the information comes through. So when we think about, well, then how do we identify our faculties? Well, first of all, in my classes, I do an assessment and let you know which ones are strongest with you already, but that doesn't mean that the other faculties or abilities are not accessible to you. Accessible is the right word. So I'll go over what these psychic senses are. So there is clairvoyance, clairaudience, there is Cognizance, Clairsentience, Clairgustance, and Clairalience. And the way that these show up, I know that media, like TV and movies, they make them out to be as if they are, you need fireworks and it needs to be like this crazy occurrence of spirit showing itself to you and communicating with you. And really, energy is so subtle. It's so subtle that it happens and you notice it when you quiet and relax yourself. Hi, Jackie. Hi, Nadia. Thanks so much for joining. And yes, the class registration is on my website. This is for Karen. If you go to the homepage and there's going to be thumbnails of all my classes, the Psychic Development Circle or Intuition Development Circle, it's like a rainbow color. Just click there, and then there's a registration link on that page. So I'll go through each one. Clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is clear seeing, and this happens through seeing through our mind's eye. And so if you've ever dreamed, daydreamed, or imagined, that is clairvoyance. It's divine inspiration that creates these symbols and images in your mind. So if you've ever just kind of thought of something and visualized it, that's clairvoyance. When you feel like you're the one who's controlling it, it's because you're manifesting. You're starting with the vision and you're creating from the vision. And then it's when you ground that vision that you start to create that vision. You're giving it a basis to exist in, a reality to exist in. Clairaudience is known as clear hearing, and that's when you hear spirit. And this can happen through, like, people usually think, oh, it's when you hear disembodied voices. But really, it's much more broader than that. And just know that when you think about interacting with spirit, when you're scared, you will shut yourself off to the connection. And so spirit will make itself available to you in a way that they know that you will be open to it, to play with it. So it doesn't usually start with hearing voices that are different from yours. It actually begins with hearing your own voice. So if you've ever thought and had dialogue in your head and it's your own voice, that is clairaudience. If you've ever recalled a song or a sound, that is clairaudience. That inspiration that implants, that gives you, that seeds, that sound, that audible memory, that is clairaudience. So a great example is when you have a song stuck in your head and you recall a memory from that, or it inspires you to do something next. That is clairaudience. The next one is clairsentience. And clairsentience is when it's a clear feeling. So commonly how that happens is you feel it in your body. And that happens a lot for me if you guys have ever watched me give live readings. And it could, so for example, for me, I feel it throughout my body. When I'm giving a reading, I start to feel sensations in different parts of my body, and the different parts of my body represent different things, whether it be mental, emotional, or whether it be like the body part is the hook in to the message, and it unravels and opens into something new. It could be related to the chakras, like I'll feel sensations in those parts of the chakras. When I give mediumship readings where I'm connecting with past loved ones, one of the things I do for evidential mediumship is connect with how that person passed. And so how I feel is I start to feel sensations in the parts of my body where that cause their passing. So, if it be cardiac arrest, if there was an accident and it affected a certain part of their body, like I felt pulsing in my head, and it was because a person fell and they had a head injury, and that's what caused their passing. Those are examples of clairsentience, but feeling is not always physical. It could also be an emotional feeling. So you just start to feel different emotions. And we'll talk about this a little bit more when I start to talk about how do you do it while feeling safe and protected. But depending on, the context of the reading, maybe I start to feel very sad, like extreme sadness. And that's because I'm picking up on the energy of the other person. Or if I'm reading for someone else, like a mediumship reading, I could feel kind of like how joyful and what the personality felt like of the person that is communicating with us. So those are all examples of clairsentience. And while these are, I'm going to keep going, but while these are examples of how it can appear for you, that's not the end all be all, because it could be also very different. For example, clairvoyance, it's when you see in your mind's eye, in your imagination, how you visualize there. When I started doing mediumship readings, I know I started from a place where I was very scared because I grew up Catholic, and it's not okay in the Catholic religion. So it was very difficult for me to see like a very realistic portrayal of the person or of how the passing was or anything really, like even if they wanted to show me a memory. So it started off where I would see things as cartoon figures. And it all just depends on the person. So even though I'm sharing these examples of what your psychic faculties can come through as, it could also be very unique to you. And really, if you have a very different experience, embrace that. That's the best thing you can do. So moving on, there's also claircognizance. And claircognizance is when the thoughts just pop in your head as if they're your own. And so I've kind of shared how the information can come through these other faculties. And when I first started developing my abilities, I really loved getting information clairvoyantly because I always thought it was really beautiful the way the symbolism came through and how it looked and the actual symbolism. Like I was getting doves as representations of faith and religion, which I still do. I would often see wildflowers and these beautiful images of nature when it had to do with grounding. But then at some point I started to get information claircognizantly where it would just pop up in my mind. And really it's the most efficient way to receive because you don't have to interpret it and it uses the least amount of your energy. But I still loved clairvoyance because I loved the visuals. The next one is clairalience. Clairalience and clairgustance. These have to do with the inner sense of taste and smell. So they don't come up too often, because how often do you interpret through taste and smell? Of course, it always comes down to the person. So if you're like a chef, that might be a very different experience for you. You might have a lot of associations with taste and smell. But a good example of how this comes through is my mom. A lot of her family members passed away within a short period of time. But her aunt, she'd always remember her aunt. She would smell these flowers that reminded her of her. And when she smelled these flowers, she knew that her aunt was around. But when she smelled these flowers, no one else smelled the flowers. And so that was really interesting. I mean, I think this was before I started developing my abilities. So at the time, it was probably like, don't tell me about what you're smelling if I can't smell it, because it scares me. So clairalience is the inner sense of smell, and clairgustance is the inner sense of taste. If you've ever, if you've ever come across recalling a dish and just remembering how delicious it was, that's the best example of clairgustance that I can give you, because honestly, that one doesn't come up for me that often either. So if you've ever had any of those experiences, then you are psychic. So I bet you've had those experiences. So yes, you're a psychic. In my classes, whether it be my psychic development circle or whether it be my beginner workshop, what I assess is whether you are more psychic, more mediumistic, or empathic. Empathic is when you are feeling what the people around you are feeling. It's when you take on other people's energy as your own. Psychic is when you are reading the energy around something. So if you've ever heard of psychometry, where it's like you pick up glasses and then you could read the energy on the glasses, or you could read the energy of a house. Or an example is when you walk into a room and you can sense the vibe in the room. That's reading psychic energy. Being a medium is when you can identify, because the energy is always being fed to you by an energetic being. So when you're a medium, you can identify who the energetic being is. Maybe you know a name. It doesn't always have to be knowing a name, but it can show itself by you being able to visually identify them. And sorry, I'm just trying to turn on my light because it's starting to get dark here. Okay. And so those are the three abilities that I assess for. Psychic ability, if you're psychic, it could also show up as having hands-on healing ability, because hands-on healing, which a lot of people know Reiki, because Reiki is a form of hands-on healing. Massage therapy is also a form of hands-on healing. But Reiki is basically reading the energy of someone's body and then rebalancing by bringing in universal life force energy. Where Reiki differs is that Reiki is the Japanese practice of Miyako Usui. I don't know. I'm not sure what the actual name is. I'm sorry. But the rituals that he used in working with hands-on healing. So, newsflash, you all have access to it. You don't have to use the symbols and stuff that they use in Reiki. You could create your own. And actually, I feel like that is much more powerful, because then it's your energy signature all over that. So getting to developing them and doing it safely and protected, it all comes down to sovereignty, which really is trust. Knowing that you are an independent being, that you have autonomy, and that nothing can violate you without your consent. To develop these senses, is to trust yourself. When the sense comes up, when you feel the intuitive nudge, Are you going to honor it and follow it because you trust yourself, or are you going to ignore it? Every time that you trust it and follow it, you are flexing that muscle. You're exercising that muscle. And the more you trust and the more you exercise and flex it, the stronger it gets. Eventually, at some point, you don't have to do the exercises, that you just are. You simply exist as your psychic self. Thank you so much for joining, Tiffany. So I hope that answers your question. I know I just dropped a ton of information, but that's what it means to help you identify whether you are psychic, because you are. I feel like sharing this information, it starts to activate within people, really following their intuition, because then now you start to acknowledge it in yourself. So again, trusting yourself and following those nudges, that really will help you. That will help you develop your intuition and your psychic abilities. And to do it in a safe and protected environment is to really know that it starts and ends with you. Even when you feel fear, how do you stand your ground and reclaim your power in that instance of fear, in the face of fear? It can be easy as I send you back energy that I do not allow in my space. It can also be just making the proclamation that no one can mess with you, that I am a sovereign being. Excuse me. I am a sovereign being, and that I am safe and protected as I am. So obviously we deep dive into that stuff in my classes. So I hope that's helpful. All right. I see Rachel has a question. Just got my first tarot and oracle yesterday. Any beginner tips that aren't normally taught? Yes, I love this question. I feel like it's really easy to get caught up in just referring to the book, which with oracle decks, you kind of have to understand what the intention is behind the card, and what the meaning of the card is. But I feel like when you are starting for the first time, is to really allow yourself to study the cards by just look at the card. And actually, let me give you an example. So this is a new deck that I purchased. It is the Tarot of the Divine. And I like to purchase, so they make tarot and oracle decks in, I don't know, there are a gajillion of themes out there. And so what I do is I like to purchase different themed decks to get to know the energy that it's working in. So I have a fairy deck, I have a dragon deck, I have a numerology deck, and then I have a regular tarot deck. And then I have this deck, which is Tarot of the Divine, because it uses the stories of international cultures, indigenous cultures, to tell the story of the tarot. And so that's what I was really wanting to get to know more of in purchasing this deck. So it's easy to just look at the book and then try to remember it. But where the magic happens is where you let your intuition guide you based on the card. So here, for example, and maybe this is something I could do for spiritual development. Does this help? Oh my God, this light is so bright. Okay, that's better. It's a little dark, but you can get an idea of what the picture on this card is. And what I really want you to focus on is what sticks out first for you, whether it be a color or whether it be a character or a background image in the card. Just look at first what stands out for you. And let that be your guide, because the card wants to speak to you. The divination tools, yes, they are living energies, but first and foremost, it's your energy that you're calling in through the divination tool to communicate with you. So I know that when I first started out working with divination tools, I was terrified because this is before I took my first class. And someone told me that they knew someone that got a tarot reading and then all sorts of bad things started happening to them. And this is what was told to me after I had my first tarot reading. So obviously I was like, oh my God, now the devil is attached to me. But that's only if you let him. If you are entering in relationship with the tool and with the energy, with love and sovereignty, then you're cool. It's your energy. Just remember that. So going back to interpreting the card, you let it, whatever sticks out to you first, let that guide you. And at first, you may feel like, what on earth does this mean? Because the universe speaks to you through your personal experience. And that's one of the first things I teach people, is that the universe, you're having a unique experience. It is your experience. And so when the universe speaks with you, it speaks with you through your filter. So you're going to have memories pop up in your head, and that is how the universe is communicating with you. So if you look at this card and you look at the dragon and you're like, oh, Mulan, you're like, oh, why would Mulan pop up in my head because of this dragon? And so then it becomes your own journey of unraveling what your relationship is to Mulan and what that means for you and what the card is trying to communicate with you. You can always refer to the book later if you really want to learn in the context of the creator, the tarot or the deck creator's intention. But it actually doesn't matter. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that's helpful, Rachel. And I think a lot of people intend to teach that. But I think a lot of people end up just trying to teach you, this is what the numbers mean. This is what the suits mean. This is what the court archetypes mean, and so on and so forth. So you could really get into deep understanding and deep messages when you let the cards just talk to you through what you know best. So Rachel wrote, I can so relate to being scared of the devil. My dad, I think he told me this in one of the lives before. So yeah, my mom has been so supportive as I've gotten into this work. But my dad, oh, okay, hold on. I'll get to the end of your message. So my dad is still around, but my dad tells me, Krisell, why do you play with the devil? And I'm like, okay. I'm like, you'll learn I'm not. It's all well-intentioned. Okay. I want you, Rachel, to share what your dad shared with you in your dream. And that's something that we can talk about in a second, because the way I was taught and what I've witnessed in my work says a lot about what happens to us when we die and what happens with our beliefs. Okay, so Nadia wrote, I'm also interested in Akashic Records. How does working with spirit guides relate or not to working with the Akashics? I'm just a bit confused. So that is actually a really great question, because when we work in the Akashic Records, okay, let me take a step back. Working with spirit guides is really like taking the veil off of all the spiritual work, because There is a guide for everything. Kind of like how the old commercials would say, there's an app for that. There's a guide for that. And so guides are supporting us through whatever skill and lesson it is that we're moving through. So when we are working in the Akashic Records, you have a guide that is working with you, guiding you through working with the Akashic Records. When I do mediumship, I have a guide that specifically works with me on my mediumship. And when I see, when I work with other people in my spiritual board session, spiritual board meeting sessions, and this is where I look at people's guides and let them know who's there and how to work with them. When the mediumship guide shows up, it's like I see them behind the person and they're like feeding. It's like you're a nutcracker and they're like feeding something through the back of your head. That's how I see mediumship guides. So working with guides is a part of everything that we do. Oh. Rachel, this is an unpopular opinion, but I agree. Okay, so Rachel's dad came to her in a lucid dream and shared this info. And yes, Jesus is a spirit guide. Jesus is a spirit guide, one of my guides, actually. He's one of my healing guides. So when I do energy healing, he works with me. And Christianity is a man's religion for order and control. So, unpopular opinion, but yeah. I don't want to get into conspiracy theory, but the more I've learned about like the path that Christianity has taken, I've realized that it's really just become this other extension of the patriarchy. So we're not going to talk about that because we're not going to get into conspiracy theory here today. But yeah, it's not to say that everything about Christianity is bad, because I do feel that there are some sects of Christianity that are well-intentioned. And this is where it comes into our autonomy and exercising our autonomy and knowing how to discern for ourselves between what is meant for us and what isn't meant for us. Because you don't need me to tell you about all the things that have happened in Christianity in recent years and recent decades to know that it's with fault. Because at the end of the day, it's still a structure created by man, and man is fallible. And so that's where it's really important for us to not put anyone on a pedestal, me included, and to be able to question and decide for ourselves what is valuable and what is not. I hope that's helpful, guys. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I'll just be going through it. I have about 20 more minutes. And then I also have some questions that came up from my Instagram account. So I know Cynthia mentioned that she's had some scary dreams, and know that you always have sovereignty. So if you ever are in a moment where you feel afraid, you can always call on deities or spirits that feel safe to you and ask them to come help you. This can also mean calling in family members that have passed that make you feel safe, because they are all there to support us, speaking of spirit guides. And so you can call on them for protection. If you're a visual person, you can also visualize bright light all around you. And actually something that I do, because trickster guides are a thing that happens. Trickster guides are guides that are just that. They're not there with the truth, and they're there to actually test us. And this is something that happens. I had a guide that was posing as a family member, And when I connect with my guides, I know, like, this is my grandpa. I know what he smells like. I know what his skin texture feels like. And I know what the temperature feels like. Because every time I meet with him, I give him a smelling kiss. And it's like I could feel, smell, and I could even feel the temperature. So I go to give my grandpa this smelling kiss, and this trickster guide is there. And I know it's not my grandpa because it doesn't smell like him. The temperature's off, like so many red flags. But these are still there for our development because it's to help us, number one, discern. Because I'm not saying that you should always be on guard to the point that you're paranoid and you trust nothing. You need to get to a point where you trust yourself and you know that you have always got it, that no matter what happens, that you can send it away, you can end it, but that you are a strong, powerful energy in yourself, and that they can't do anything to you that you will not allow. You are a strong, powerful energy in yourself, and nothing can harm you without your consent. Remember that. But I also realize what it's like when you're just starting to journey into this experience. So some other tips are using crystals. And using crystals is also just like using a totem. So use objects that help you feel safe and keep them with you. So if it happens while you're sleeping, use these and keep them by your bed. If you're looking for a crystal, clear quartz is always great. Dark colored crystals are really great because they ground you. Having a grounding practice outside of sleep helps build your grounding muscles so that you're grounded, so that you're to the point where you don't even need to do the practice. You're just grounded. You just exist as it. So those are other tips. If you are Christian, you can call on Mother Mary because our mothers are like the supreme mothers. The mothers are like this. Mother Mary is like the supreme mother, and your mother's side tends to mother you very strongly from the other side. So Mother Mary is like the supreme mother archetype, and you can always call on her. I say call on deities that are safe to you. So if you are of a different religion, call on a deity from that religion that helps you feel protected. So Tiffany asks, when working with you one-on-one, do you discuss further into spirit guides? So in my spiritual board meeting session where I identify all of your spirit guides, and actually I don't identify all of them, I probably keep it to your top 5 because you can have a freaking army. You can have an army of spirit guides depending on where you're at in life. And what I do is I go through these spirit guides and I talk about who they are, what they represent, and how you can best work with them. I kind of explain what they look like to me to help you when you interact with them and can identify them. But regardless of how they look to me, it can look different to you. But the idea is to help you build relationship with more guides. I was explaining how to work with guides, like a foundation in these sessions, but it takes too much of the time in the session because going through your room and identifying all your guides can easily take up the full hour. So I actually recommend, if you're interested in working with your guides, to sign up, like register for my on-demand course, Connect and Work with Your Spirit Guides. It is a self-guided online course with meditations, videos, and questions to help you move through the information. And then every month, starting in April, I go live for an hour and answer any questions. And with those questions, I'm going to start, the videos will be part of the course. They'll stay in there. But then I will also be creating a FAQ so that people can look through them as we start to accumulate more and more questions. What I really want to use that hour live each month for is that it's really helpful for people. All my sessions are virtual. But I find it's really helpful when people are meeting their guides for the first time for me to do it with you so that I can help validate what you're experiencing. And while the idea is that you don't need the validation, when you're first starting out, it helps. I know it helps because it helped me. Okay, so okay, I think you already asked this. I think I already answered this question. So for Rachel. Rachel's question was like astrology, crystals, crystal grids, essential oils, elements, dimensions. Being a Capricorn with OCD, I want to know it all right now. I'm a Capricorn moon, Capricorn rising, so I can relate. I'm coming out with an offering which is going to give people the foundations to be able to explore their spirituality and intuition and all of these different forms of divination in a way that they can do it without needing to take a course. Because at the core of it, everything is trying to speak with you. And if you know how to connect with it, then you don't need the course. You will learn what you need to learn in the context of you and your experience. And I think that that is much more powerful than learning how someone else uses a modality. Let's see here. Oh, Blair asked, could you explain a little bit more about your spirit guide course? So the spirit guide course is working with spirit guides has been a really big part of my development. My grandmother passed away when my mom was 5, so I never met her. And it was such a painful experience for my mom that I really didn't start to learn anything about her until recently. So this grandmother is actually one of my master guides, and I started to get to know her and work with her a lot in developing a relationship with her and my other guides. And she has really helped me in everything. And to give you an example, when I took my very first intuition development workshop, I wrote a letter to my guides, and it was just written generally to all of my guides and listed very specific goals. I wanted to develop my intuition and do this work part-time, giving readings and helping people feel exercise protection, spiritual protection, and helping them feel safe as they explore it. I also put, and I think I saved this somewhere, but I also put that I wanted to wanted to expand my house, have a bigger house. I wanted to have 2 working cars because my husband and I had junky cars. And I wanted to grow my family. Every single thing on there was checked off by last year. We remodeled our house, made it bigger. One of the things specifically that I put on that list was that I wanted to give readings at a party. And I did that. In Christmas of 2019, I read tarot at a company party, and it was it was a paying gig. They paid me to read tarot for their Christmas party. I remodeled my house. We did a home edition, which finished last year. And by last year, my husband and I both had newer working cars. And we grew our family last year because my husband came home with a dog. I thought I wanted a baby, but then I realized this year, I was like, our family is so full, and I'm so grateful for that. So I don't know that having another kid is necessary. So working with guides can be very powerful in understanding your purpose and in living your life and living a full life. So another example is working with guides can teach you. You can build a relationship with your guides and have them teach you how to develop your abilities. And it all happens in how you build your relationship with them. So in this course, I explain a little more in depth clairsenses and what the different abilities are. And then I talk about different kinds of guides. And then I also talk a little bit more about different dimensional guides. And then I walk you through a meditation to meet your guides. And I also include a meditation to meet your elemental guides. So if you guys are into nature spirits, those are elemental guides. I also share a meditation on the meditation I share is discernment, which is the heart meditation. I also go into grounding, raising your vibration, and how to use meditation, because everything happens in meditation. And people often think that meditation is sitting in lotus position and chanting Om. But really, meditation is a relaxed state of mind where you let your conscious mind take a back seat and let your subconscious take over. And that's really what you want to get into. And it's in that state that then you start to notice all the subtle energy shifts, and you start to notice the universe communicating with you. So I go over that, and then I go over how to integrate and apply what you've learned in different ways, whether it be working with your guides to do inner child healing, or work with your guides for ancestral healing, or work with your guides to develop your psychic abilities, and how to continue that relationship. So regularly, the class is going to be priced at $70, but because I just released it, I'm actually offering it for $35. And with the registration, what's included is unlimited access to the course. So that includes any updates to the content. It's all housed in a Facebook community, and you also get access, again, to all these meditations. And we're building a community through this course. So we're building a community, and to get the most out of the course, there are activities to do, and for you to comment within each unit to share your experience. And so it was a labor of love, and you should take it. It's $35, and you can find it on my website. If you go to classes and events, which are also the thumbnails on the homepage, just click on the Connect and Work with Your Spirit Guides course. And then there is a registration button to pay through PayPal. And then you request access to the Facebook group and just share the email that you used when you paid. And that's how you get access. If you guys have any questions, you can actually, if you guys have any questions on this course, go ahead and drop them in the comments, because I have less than 6 minutes left. And actually, it's become a regular practice of mine that whenever I do goal setting, that I goal set with my guides, and everything I do with my guides. Okay, it looks like there aren't any more questions. So I just want to share again. If you aren't already on my mailing list, you want to join my mailing list right now. Just go to my website. Actually, go to the homepage, because I just updated my website so that there isn't a pop-up. But go to my homepage, join my mailing list. And then when you join my mailing list, you will be, if you join it today, you'll be on that mailer that's going to be sent tomorrow to register for my free group past life regression. And again, it's going to be limited. So you're going to want to be on that mailing list. You're going to want to make sure it goes to your inbox or not to your junk mail, because I'm only going to be offering 5 free registrations. And maybe I'll share what group past life regressions are on so much to talk about. Maybe I'll share that next month in the Q&A. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I love all your questions. I love helping answer and helping people get to a comfortable space with your spirituality, because your spirituality is all about you. I am so excited to work with you in the future, Cynthia. Again, you guys, I have a psychic development circle on this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, everyone. Join me here on Thursdays from 5 p.m. Pacific time to 6 p.m. Pacific time. Next week, I'm going to be doing emoji readings. So if you guys want an emoji reading, join me then. Hey, Barry, thanks so much for joining. If you guys missed the whole video or missed portions of it, you can catch the recordings. And all you got to do is, if you go to my website, go to virtual demonstrations, and there's a link to watch the past recordings. So thanks again. You guys have a great night. Have a good weekend. If you join for the Psychic Development Circle on Saturday, I look forward to seeing you there.